I think one thing I remember from last time is Andy mentioned uh, inductive and deductive reasoning for
Mm.
something, and
Oh,
I wanted to like remember what the differences between the two were.
no, I think it was, well, we could talk about that too, but it was mathematical induction that I brought up.
Ah,
Hmm.
and what is mathematical induction?
Oh man. Well, I'm no math teacher, but I'll give it a shot. Uh, it's the way I understand it, it's a way to prove that something is true for an entire set, and I think the set can even be like an infinite set. The like classic example is, let's say you're like on a ladder, and the two things that have to be true for you to, well, okay, so like you're trying to prove that you can get to any point on this ladder, and the two things that have to be true that you have to prove is that one, you have to be able to start on the ladder, so you have to be able to like get on it, and then the second thing is you have to be able to prove that if you're already on the ladder, you are able to get to the next rung up. And if you could prove those two things, you just prove that you can be on any point of that ladder. Something like that. You remember that? Did you learn that in math class?
No.
No.
What
Oh,
type of math is that?
I saw it. Well, I just remember seeing it in discrete math, but I'm pretty sure it
Okay.
appeared earlier than that.
I never took discrete math, and I don't remember it in anything earlier, so that's like a concept I'm not familiar with. Wait, so mathematical induction, is that the process of proving like the first, if we're sticking with the latter example, is mathematical induction the process of proving the first two points, or is mathematical induction the concept that there needs to be those first 2 points proven
Yeah, I
first?
think it's oh, it's yeah, so it's like a method. It's like the method in which you if you prove these two facts to be true about whatever I think it's called uh predicate, whatever predicate you're trying to prove. You prove that those two things are true, and then you've proven that the predicate is true. Uh, well, so, yeah. Oh man, if my my discrete math teacher ever hears this, he's gonna be really disappointed in me. But yeah, I
Uh,
think it's the way you say it in English is you prove the first thing, and then you say, uh, based on that, I now invoke induction to help me prove the second thing, or something like that. Uh, I don't know. I don't even want to try to explain it. It to me, it's like I have the idea in my head. It's just it's just in my head as like chemicals, an arrangement of like electrons, but trying to explain it in English kind of difficult for me right now. But
I
yeah,
get it.
you gotta believe that I know what it means in my head.
well, according to tutorialspoint.com,
There we go. Okay.
under the discrete mathematics segment, it says mathematical induction is a mathematical technique which is used to prove a statement, a formula, or a theorem is true for every natural number. The
Okay.
technique involves two steps to prove a statement. As stated below, step one, the base step, it proves that a statement is true for the initial
Nice.
value.
Yeah.
Oh, hold up. It's loading.
And then the inductive
And
step.
then step two is the inductive step,
There it
which is
is.
where the name comes from. And it proves that if the statement is true for the nth iteration, or number n, then it is also true for n plus 1 nth iteration, number n plus 1.
Mm.
Oh, you cut
So,
out.
what other examples would there be for this? Like,
Let's
Where do you
see.
need to use this?
I used it a lot in automata theory. So you could like prove things about strings that you have no idea, or let's see. Yeah, sets of strings that you don't really know. You don't want to like go visit every string, and you couldn't because some of them are like the set of strings you're looking at could be infinite. So you just have to use induction, and you just trust that if it's true for enough. If it's true for the ones you've looked at, then it's true for the rest of them in that infinite set.
Mm.
Hmm.
Dang, this is so interesting because I've never took a discrete math course, so this is
Really?
all. I understand like set notation, but as far as like discrete math goes, it's very, very foreign to me.
Oh yeah. A lot of it is just yeah, formulas and notation. I almost think of it as like a writing class,
Yeah.
but it's not like
Yeah,
English writing class. It's like math.
yeah, it is like a math writing class. It's like transforming what you say into mathematical set notation.
Yeah. I think it's fun. I get a kick out of it.
Yeah, I kind of wish I took a discrete math class.
All right, let's. You could talk to me about discrete math anytime. Did you take discrete math, Logan?
No, I didn't get to that one.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
might see it with a CS program.
Yeah. Is it something that you have to discuss discreetly?
Ah, yeah, you should.
Maybe we should edit this out.
Oh yeah, huh?
I'm just kidding.
I think it's actually kind of useless for a CS major. I feel like I need to qualify a lot of stuff I say if anyone hears this, because I don't know. Apparently it's important because it's part of most CS programs, but I mean I don't know. I don't really use too much of what I've learned in discrete math. I guess discrete
Okay.
math by itself, and then if you go take automata theory, well, actually automata theory you don't really use either,
Uh,
unless you're like, well, unless you're like me and you try to fit it into things you do.
Wait,
yeah.
you're saying discrete math is useless in computer science majors?
Well, I think for the most part, I'll say at least like software developers, or I'll even say, let's just go and say like game developers. I don't think they're ever gonna be like, oh, let's go and use, induction to solve this game development problem. But,
That's funny.
yeah, so I think
I
though,
I looked
oh,
up what is discrete mathematics used for, and it said discrete mathematics are useful in studying and describing objects and problems in branches of computer science, such as computer algorithms, programming languages, cryptography, automated theorem proving, and software development.
oh no. So yeah,
So it looks like it's only used in computer science.
oh, oh, if that's what you're saying, yeah, I could see that being true. Probably mathematicians too. But I'm surprised software development made it on that list.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's not something they teach in high school. And I guess by that I mean they don't think it's that important that they want to like give it to you early on.
Yeah.
That was kind of an interesting thing. Okay, here's one we could talk about because I think this will relate to Adam, and I'm sure Logan too. But what do you guys think about all the like subjects that they've decided on teaching in high school? Uh, for example, like I don't know, you have math, you have history, you have English, right? Those are all kind of staples of high school
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just our high school, but we didn't have any CS stuff, computer science stuff. So I
Yeah,
guess
that's
some
true.
schools are like ahead of us, but To me,
Yeah,
that's
well,
kind of
Mission Vista has a computer science program, or not a computer science program, but like they have computer science classes, and that's what got JJ into computer science. I think he took his first computer science class, junior year of high school, and that's kind of what kick started his passion for computer science. So
mhm.
I always want that's something I will always wonder is if I had taken a high school class in computer science, would I have ended up being a computer science major?
Yeah.
Because the more I research computer science and the type of thinking involved, I feel like I would love it, but it still doesn't make sense to me, which is weird. And that's why I wonder, like, if my first exposure to it was in an actual high school classroom, rather than just because all my friends are doing it and I'm bandwagoning,
Uh-huh.
trying to figure it out.
Well, that's the problem, I think, is like you didn't really have a good way to try it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Still
that's true.
teach English. I'm sorry, I always give English a hard time.
I
I don't
do
know about
too,
English.
Andy, don't
Maybe
worry.
more of like, okay, maybe more of like reading literature. I don't get that one. I I just don't get it. Do you
Yeah.
guys?
English, I understand why English is a core subject. Um, I don't understand why English is a core subject all the way until senior year of high school. I'll put it
That's a
that
good one.
way.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Um, I feel like, yeah, English should be required until sophomore year, and then once you're a junior in high school, you could choose. I feel like you're old enough when you're a junior in high school to be able to choose your own classes, and if you don't think
Mm,
English is important to you, and you could fill that time with another class, maybe like a STEM class, then have that option or opportunity. But yeah, I don't know. I would be very interested to hear the reasoning as to why educators feel the need to keep English as part of core curriculum, even all the way until high school. Like it's part of your GEs, and I know we kind of touched on that last time we were talking.
oh, do you mean college?
Yeah, and so if like they're gonna keep English on that long, like at least make it stop in high school. So in college
You
you
get a break.
could, yeah.
Mm.
But I guess that's why they have AP English classes in high school because it gives you the opportunity to not have to take it in college. But I don't know.
Oh,
That's still too many English classes, in my opinion.
so you think it should be like 1 year English, 1 year math, and then you go back to English and you just kind of like switch off?
No, I think after high school, if you took AP English and Pass, which is um, kind of already what's happening. If you take AP English and pass, you shouldn't have to do it in college. What I'm saying is, even if you did do AP English in high school and pass, there were still like 2 or 3 upper level English classes you had to take.
Hmm. Nice.
Like I had to take one, two. I took 4 English classes on top of like so I took 4 English classes in college, and that's on top of the AP English and IB English classes I took in high school.
Wow.
And so I'm saying if I passed those classes in high school, you shouldn't have to take even more English classes in college. And that's kind of what AP classes and AP tests are trying to do. I just don't think that it's good enough. I don't know. Yeah, I have my reservations for English. I definitely think English you should reach a point in high school where English transitions from core curriculum to an elective.
Mm.
That'd be nice. I think it would
Yeah.
stimulate some of the students' interests.
And
Yeah.
even like give the option to maybe substitute your English class for a communications class or
Okay.
like a speech and debate class or something that okay, like if they're reasoning to keep English um part of the core curriculum all the way until you graduate, like I would like to know what the reasons are and then see if other classes can fulfill those reasons and if making English um like optional would be a better route to do that. But I don't know. I don't know people to ask those questions to. I don't know people that are high up in the education realm that make those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, me either. Should run some experiments though.
Yeah. What's your opinion on English, Logan?
I don't know, I don't think I've thought about it to the degree that you guys have. I guess I did just kind of like go through it in high school. I liked that, I'm not as like I don't read all the time on my own like volition, so being told to do that, it just like reading some books that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise, discussing them, and then going through college, I feel like I appreciate a little bit like the just how to formulate your thought into words over like an essay or something like that makes a bit more sense. I kind of appreciate having learned that a little bit because in one way I think that can translate because sometimes I am in like these long email exchanges with somebody or certain conversations, and I think that way of like questioning like am I communicating effectively and all that, like it kind of helped me in that way to kind of take out unnecessary sentences from like an email or anything like that. So I guess I feel like I do appreciate it a bit. I don't know if it should be mandatory, but to an extent I do. um I don't know. I don't I feel like it gets the amount of time that it deserves. It's just like one period, but I guess it is kind of treated like one of the most important ones. That's debatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like I don't think it's a bad thing that we have English until 12th grade. But the importance that is made of it is what I question.
Yeah.
Or at least I try to question. I think the education system tends to make English seem a lot more important and a lot more what's the word, like high priority than it deserves.
Yeah.
Because if the goal is to just read and write, I think other classes can accomplish that. I know like history classes involve a lot of writing. And then maybe you could substitute English for like a journaling class. Um, yeah, I think for me personally, when it comes to reading as well, I like reading about subjects I'm more interested in. And so it's hard to want to write an essay about a book that you read that you're just not interested at all. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
very much into fiction, but people also make the argument that it's important to read like classical literature or books from different periods of history or genres to like keep you more educated or keep you more well-rounded. That's actually an interesting thought. Like, what are your guys' opinions on the need to read books like The Grapes of Wrath or The Old Man and the Sea, Romeo and Juliet, A Clockwork Orange, 1984, Fahrenheit
Yeah.
451, you know, all those like classic books that you tend to read in an English class.
Yeah, I have kind of thought about that, and it's like, yeah, to what extent should people be like told to read these things, like, um, because it is wisdom of people from the past or present, but we're talking about the past, and
Right.
some of these people were very wise people, and it does stimulate thoughts in your brain that I think can be valuable. Like, when I didn't read it, I listened to 1984 like a couple of years ago, and I couldn't ever get it out of my head. Like, it was always in there. Like, my brain still goes back to it and thinks like, wow, this is the world that we're in now. And it's like, I don't know, people from the past predicting based on their current knowledge of how the human brain works and how human nature is, like predicting how it's going to be in the future. I know that's just a specific type of book. It's not all books, but I think there is something to it, you know? Yeah, I think there's definitely value in there, and that it's not necessarily bad thoughts for us to have, and we probably wouldn't have these thoughts otherwise. But yeah, I do think about like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 pretty often, actually.
That's some very interesting insight. I like that. How
Yeah.
about you, Andy, with your very mathematical, analytical, and computer sciencey brain? What do you think the importance of reading classical literature, postmodern literature, Victorian era literature, you know, all the books they make us read in our lit classes and English classes
Yeah.
growing up through high school?
Well, you're asking what I think the importance of those is, of reading those?
Yeah, like to what extent do those books actually affect the quality of a human being able to function in society?
Well, I think I didn't even think. I know I'm I'm not the right person to be answering a question like this, but I'll give it a shot. I I don't know. To me, I kind of see that as like you learn, you read these, and you go and like talk to someone. You're like, oh, I read Grapes of Wrath, or whatever. Is that the name of the book? You tell someone you read it, and like that kind of earns you some credibility in that person's eyes. But that's kind of about it that I can see. It's like it proves that you're kind of cultured. And I guess that's kind of cynical, but yeah, honestly, that's kind of how I see it. And I almost think like colleges they'll always want to like send people out in the world from their school, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we showed them of these like really nice novels and whatnot, all
Wait,
these classics.
who wants to send them out to school?
Oh, like colleges they just want to like be responsible for having. And I know this is like really cynical and whatnot, but the thing is like I don't know, I didn't do well in reading or literature classes in high school. I guess just high school is all I can think of right now. But it would always be like I would always like misinterpret what these books were about. And like the teachers would always tell me like, "Oh yeah, like your analysis was way off." And they'd go into like discussions, and I'd be like, I've never thought of it that way. And I don't think I would have ever thought of it like that. It almost felt like I had to learn how to fake I had to like learn this fake way of analyzing things that didn't seem very natural to me. Just
Yeah,
in my opinion.
that's such a good way to describe that feeling. I definitely have experienced that same exact thing. I've just never been able to put it into words as well as you just did.
Ah,
But yeah, whenever I was in an English class, I always felt like I was just BSing the whole thing. And
yeah.
the better you were at just BSing stuff, the better grade you got on your English essays.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that the ability to just BS your thoughts on what you read was a skill that I never picked up and never got good at. Which I
Oh
think
yeah.
is good because for people like you and me, that shows that we're genuine. We're when we think a piece of work is stupid, we're not afraid to
Oh yeah.
do so. We're not gonna just try to come up with some ideal rant about it that makes us sound smart.
Uh, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I was gonna say I think it like at least hurt me because I don't feel like I'm a very good BSer. I think if I had to, I couldn't do it, or I'd do it and people would be like, he's very unskilled in that, so I'll give him a pass. But yeah, that's something I got to work on. Um, but anyway, yeah, I just to me it's like I never really saw the point, so I can't really in my head I can't find an answer to how it's important other than it being like a way to prove that you're cultured. So yeah, it's
Mm,
my long-winded answer to your question.
interesting. Yeah. I can relate to coming to the false analysis in my own brain, and when they tell me like certain what might symbolize what else, I'm like, how the heck does that?
Yeah,
How do you make it that?
that make that connection.
Yeah.
So is it kind of up to is it up to the teacher's interpretation? Like, is that their rubric for that class? How does that work?
I don't know.
And then if not that,
Yeah.
then I'm pretty sure like a lot of these have some really agreed upon interpretations. And then now it's just kind of just like, yeah, everybody's just using that. Well, I guess there's some value in going through that process. I don't know. Never mind.
I liked what Logan was saying earlier about how thinking back to books that we read in high school, like 1984, Fahrenheit 451, Clockwork Orange, those types of books that force you to think. Logan was saying how it's interesting to see the point of views those authors had and the wisdom that they had to portray to their audience and their readers. And there's still something to kind of glean from reading books like that and the knowledge that those authors had and the wisdom they had. There is value and use in acquiring their thoughts and their points of view and um, yeah, not repeating the same mistakes. And because a lot of these books that you read in high school, these authors, these guys were super super wise people, and yeah, I think there's definitely value to having seen things from their point of view. And I think books do a really good job of kind of allowing a person to enter into the mind of the writer. But one question I thought was interesting is what extent do you think authors have to contributing to society? Because I feel like a lot of our conversation has been about like what have we personally learned from
Right.
reading these books and our English classes. But to kind of pose it as a more general question, maybe even more universal on a macro scale, is how much do writers and authors actually contribute to society? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because in my mind, I know engineers and architecture or architects and computer scientists and STEM majors, they're actually pushing technology forward, and there's a quantifiable and qualitative growth that you can measure in those fields as technology increases and improves the lives of others. And so I'm wondering, what are your guys' opinions on what level do writers and authors contribute to society, and how important are those?
I got an idea. So here's what comes to my mind is like, so yeah, you have those engineers and people who create things, make stuff, and make stuff happen, and that contributes to our society in a very obvious way. Like, wow, we have Steve Jobs, and now we have these smartphones that have really simplified our lives in some ways and complicated them in others. But then what comes to my mind right away about your question is it's like these authors and stuff. Like, imagine a book that reaches like the entire country. It's like, I think of it like thoughts are like a virus almost. And like, we didn't always have podcasts and radio. We've had radio a long time, but you wouldn't only really highly esteemed people could really make it on there, or people in that industry. But it's like thoughts are like this virus that can, everybody can like latch onto it. And if like you're a brilliant person and you write a book, and then that book ends up being loved by like the entire country, then some of your thoughts made it into the minds of like that many people. And then those people are going to maybe perpetuate those thoughts in their own conversations like to come. And then in a small way, like that one author maybe put their footprint on the, like what society is, but it's so small. I mean, there's so many things that add to what society is, but like that's just one small footprint. And like that's why I also kind of think about like, what is society now, and will it be now that almost everyone's voice can be heard. Yeah, but anyway, I think the thoughts that exist in the country and the world are very important, and these thoughts might even inspire the people that make stuff, or maybe inspire them not to make stuff, or however it works. But yeah, that's kind of like my 2 cents.
Yeah, I read a very interesting article. I wish I remembered what platform it was on, but it talked about how the importance of imagination in fictional literature and writing. And
Yeah,
there's this cycle, or at least cyclical nature, to people having thoughts and ideas, kind of like what you're talking about, and putting them into writing for people to read and for an audience to consume. And that spreads that idea and leads to people creating other ideas off of that, and kind of expands people's minds and expands their imaginations, leads to people with more analytical brains wanting to see if achieving those ideas, those new thoughts and things that people originally thought were only a part of imagination, were possible. So that pushes technology. And once you push technology forward, that creates even more ideas. So people's imaginations get expanded upon even after that. Then they write about it, spread their thoughts and ideas, and then people swoop in and try to make it a reality, and then push technology even further, which expands the imagination. And it creates this constant cycle um, yeah, people's imagination being spread through literature and writing and leading to technological growth, which expands imagination, and that whole process continues and continues. And I think if I had an answer to my original question, I think it would be something along the lines of that, of the scale, or the at least the level of importance that imagination has on technology, because at some point in time, someone had to see a bird fly and think, oh, that would be so cool to fly. I wonder what it would be like to be able to fly. And then somewhere later down the line, people wrote books about humans being able to fly, which allowed for the idea that maybe humans can fly. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
people pushed for the idea of how can humans fly? And then people started creating machines and studying designs of bird wings and trying to put it all together to create a machine, a technology that would allow man to fly. And eventually in the late 1800s, Wilbur and Orville Wright accomplished that, and now we have the airplane. And so
yeah,
I think studying the history of the airplane is one of the best examples to see how imagination leads to technological growth. And it starts with like the story of Daedalus and Icarus, the Greek myth of the father and son duo who tried flying from the island of Crete to Greece, and they put together a whole bunch of feathers to make wings for their arms, and glued it to them using wax. And then Icarus flew too close to the sun, and so the sun melted the wax, and Icarus eventually plummeted down to Earth to his death. And so we see that it humans have been imagining ways to fly all the way back to the ancient Greeks, and probably even before then. I mean, it's so ingrained in human nature to have a desire to be able to fly. And we want to be able to fly like Superman, but obviously we don't have that extent. But it had to take that imagination to push people to create technology to get us into the air. And yeah, I think it's interesting how imagination in fictional writing plays a role in technological development. A similar thing kind of happened with the invention of the rocket that eventually led astronauts to the moon, and that all started in a French film, Le Voyage de la Lune, which was a very, very early black and white motion picture, that didn't have sound. It had like captions, and um, looks closer to like a stage play than an actual film that we know today. But in that film, there's a scene of the main characters getting launched to the moon with something that almost looks like a cannon, and they get inside this bullet, uh, and get shot out of the cannon, and that flies all the way to the moon. And it's just so cool to see that even more than 100 years ago, the idea of how to get to the moon was very similar to modern day rockets. So I
yeah,
do think the arts, even though that like film isn't writing it, I still think it's a fictional work of art. And there's just something about imagination in fictional works of art, like film or like literature, or even paintings and drawings, that could inspire people to create technology to push those boundaries. And so there's that back and forth between that, I guess, that positive feedback loop between the arts and STEM. What are your thoughts, Andy?
Oh man. Uh, well, I kind of disagree with that, with what you just said, Adam. But of
Yeah?
course, I didn't read the article, so that's why I disagree right now. Yeah.
No, I love that. What are
Oh.
your thoughts?
Um. Yeah. I'm not really sure what kind of literature you guys are thinking about while you're answering this or while you're discussing this. But I'm still thinking you're talking about like classics, the ones you listed before. Um. I don't know. To me, it seems kind of uh. I guess let's just say, if you had the idea of flying, you say, "Oh, I want to fly." I don't really think reading something about that is gonna like further that as much as someone being like, "Oh, let's look at the physics, see if it's even feasible. What kind of, laws do we have to exploit? Uh, physical laws, that is, not legal laws." But yeah, that
Right.
kind of stuff. Uh, I don't really feel like. I mean, I think it helps. Maybe it has like a 10% contribution, but I think most of, and this is me just, the scientific brain that I have. But yeah,
Right.
and then I was thinking about like a disease, I don't know, like cancer or something. You could write about it all you want, and you could come up with like, oh, we cure cancer by eating pancakes with cancer-shaped syrup, whatever, something like silly, like that, imaginative. But I don't think that's going to have as much of an impact as like looking at the chemical structure of cancer or looking at. I would even say you could look at like, you know, look at scientific literature of diseases and whatever research they've done on cancer. To me, that seems like where you can solve more problems, or at least make more
Ah,
progress. And again,
I like
I didn't read your article, so like I might sound like an idiot, but yeah,
Ah,
that's just how I see it.
that. No, I value your opinion and
Okay.
yeah, regardless of whether you read the article or not, like that opinion still matters, and I think that's cool that we're able to disagree on that. I don't know if I even fully agree with that article either. That was just like an idea I just thought I would put out there.
Okay.
yeah. No, I kind of want to discuss it a little more. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
what
let's
you were
debate.
saying about the whole cancer analogy, and um,
yeah.
yeah, the STEM field seems to be driven by a passion to solve problems. And so, on what level does English solve problems? Does literature? On
I like
what
how that was
scale
kind of
do novelists and writers solve problems? I think is kind of the question that we're asking. And I think for you, Andy, your answer would be they don't.
yeah, I better.
Like I think you might even be onto something. Like maybe writers and novelists create more problems. You know, who knows?
Like,
Maybe
Yeah.
by
here's my thought.
Go ahead,
Oh, go
go
Logan.
ahead,
ahead,
Adam.
Logan.
Oh, okay. My thought that it's not like perfectly clear in my mind, but I wanted to like talk to Andy, and my thought is like, what if literature is this way for like society to communicate like with itself? So like, like some guy like conceives of a thought in his mind, and this guy is not a STEM person like at all. He's not
Yeah.
mathematically inclined, but he has this vision of like humans flying, for example. And so he just writes a fictional story of it. And so then like people read that story, and then they all think, yeah, man, that would be cool if like humans can fly. I guess like kind of like Adam was saying. But then like what if that idea is then just kind of like in the minds of humans where like it wasn't before. And then by the time that the actual human mind that is capable and willing to work on flight, like from a STEM perspective, like he has the idea that, yeah, like humans can fly, and I'm gonna make it happen. And so like, what if that's that? And then like, here's another thought, is like bringing it back to like some of the classics, and I'm not saying all of them, but like, 1984 was written in a very long time ago. It may have been in like the 40s. Do you know, Adam? Like maybe around then.
50s. It was
Oh
post
yeah.
World War II.
Yeah. So that was written that long ago, and it like by a guy who just conceived of the idea that like one day it is possible that our privacy will be like taken away from us, and humans will try to control other humans to a greater extent than they ever have before. And it's almost like a warning. Like that's how I see it. It's like that book is just fiction, it's just literature, it's not something that really happened. But now those ideas are in people's heads where they might not have been before. Like they're in my head, and they weren't there before I like listened to that book. And so now I am actually more like conscientious of like, is the government or is a powerful entity going to take away my freedom of privacy? Are they going to start like, you know, monitoring us more? And I think it is happening to an extent. And so people now, because of George, was it Orwell?
Yeah,
Right?
George Orwell.
Yeah,
And it
because of
was
that guy.
1948, so I was wrong.
Oh, okay, yeah.
1948, so it was the 40s, late 40s.
But yeah, like because of that man, now there is, and sorry, and other people. I think other people have written about such things, but that one, he had the biggest like reach, and because of him, myself and others have a greater apprehension of like, the government or a large powerful entity uh monitoring me. And I think it's good to have those thoughts in your mind. And the more smart people out there, it might reach them, and they might start to like think about ways to counter that before it becomes a big problem. Anyway, those are I feel like there's better examples, but my thesis is that it is just a way for humanity to like communicate with each other, and not everything is like important from like a STEM perspective. Like it would be interesting to discuss like, how is Harry Potter necessarily like going to uh change the world in that way? But I don't
Twilight.
know.
Yeah, I guess the question becomes, is there value to things that don't solve problems?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna think of it more as I don't like to answer like those yes or no kind of questions, but how about comparing the degree of influence or degree of value to, let's say, something nonfiction versus fiction.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, I think reading like a fictional novel, I would I would guess that there's a lot of gray or vagueness, ambiguity, I guess, in some of the like messages that book is trying to make. Because they're not gonna just say like, well, maybe this one, 1967, what was it?
1984.
Okay,
1984.
1984. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just says like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. This is what's gonna happen. Whatever. But from what I've seen, it's mostly kind of like cryptic, and they'll try to make a story, tell it through the characters. They'll tell their message through characters and whatever. So I don't know. I think that's kind of dangerous in that somebody might go misinterpret it. Not just somebody, but maybe like everybody who reads it. Um, I don't know. But either way, the way I see it is like, yeah, the writers are having an impact on society, but they're kind of having like an indirect impact, as in like they write something, somebody goes and interprets it, and then that new person is the one that's actually gonna like act on it. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I kind of think, to me, I like to be involved with things where I'm like closer to the impact or closer to being uh at the end point. So rather than like having that middleman of like, oh, I tell someone my idea and then they go do it, I'd rather be
Yeah.
like kind of closer to doing the actual thing. And I don't know what the alternative to that is, but that's kind of how I see writers, unfortunately. It's like they're kind of the indirectly influencing something. So when I'm saying like what degree versus like, I don't know, I already forgot what the our prompt was, but they're kind of like on the lower or the further end, or the, I guess, I don't know, less of an impact than say someone who's going out and doing a STEM thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And to answer your question, the original prompt was the value on things that don't solve problems.
Oh, okay, like don't directly solve problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in a world where we're just quantifying the value of something based on its ability to solve problems, then
Mhm.
yeah, of course, STEM would be the reigning champion in that debate. So then, in order for people advocating for English and even beyond English, just like liberal arts in general, people trying to advocate for that would have to respond to the question of how valuable are things that don't solve problems.
Mhm. Well, I don't want to. I
Hmm.
don't want to say they don't solve problems. I just think indirectly they don't directly solve problems. Or I don't even want to say that. They you know what I mean? Like I want to try to avoid absolutes, but I think
Right.
they're like less direct. There you go. I'm happy saying that. They're less
I
direct
like
than
that. I like that.
they'd be. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Logan?
Um. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like just thinking about it. It's interesting stuff though. Um, some part of me thinks about like, fiction and the things that don't solve problems, like maybe Harry Potter or something. Like it's accomplishing something because I mean Harry Potter has hit so many people. Like first it was a book and then it was a movie, and between the two it has hit like the majority of the United States and probably like a lot more. And one thing that I'm thinking, and this is not a well-formed idea in my mind, but it's just like, um, it is like a kind of a positive story. Like, I think there's like a
Right.
lot of positivity involved with it, and those things might inspire people in some way to like not give up, persevere, because you want to be like Harry Potter or whatever. Like if it hits like a kid in a young age, like they get the idea that you should work hard and fight for what you believe in and all these things. They're not as tangible as like writing about, someone flying or something, but maybe those things do inspire. Like the inspiration that comes from it is one thing that might be affecting culture as well and propagating good energy, positive vibes into the future, propelling us into like the next generation. Those are a couple of thoughts.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think there's definitely that there's an inspiration factor that exists to fictional writing, and I think that
Yeah.
could be important in maybe not solving problems directly related to STEM issues, but it does solve problems for maybe people struggling with confidence or social and behavioral issues that people, just human beings, tend to struggle with just due to human nature. And I think just the general amount that books are capable of inspiring others does have value. And I thought it was interesting that you brought that up, because there's a guy named Joseph Campbell, and he was a professor. I don't remember what university, but he came up with the idea of the hero's journey, which is a concept of how so many stories that we tend to really look up to, or we tend to identify ourselves with, or find ourselves in the main character, and um, like have that inspiration and feel part of the story, is because of how similar these stories kind of apply to the highs and lows and cycles of our lives. And so he identified that there's so many myths and legends and even modern day stories that kind of follow this same pattern. And that pattern is called the hero's journey. And you see it in Star Wars, you see it in Harry Potter, you see it in The Matrix and in Lord of the Rings. And it's kind of just this idea of, you start, the main character, our protagonist, starts in this very bland, ordinary world, and then there's something that occurs in that ordinary world that sparks this opportunity to go on a quest. And maybe the character is all in to go, or maybe they're a little hesitant and reserved and they're not sure. But then it takes that like extra push to take a leap of faith into crossing the threshold from being in a bland, ordinary world to going on an adventure in a more special world that was existing under their nose the whole time that they didn't understand. And that push usually comes from an older, wiser mentor figure. And so if we take the stories like Harry Potter, he's in just the regular Muggle world, and it takes Hagrid and other people from the wizarding world to kind of open up his eyes and give him that call to adventure to experience this much more magical world. And you see this pattern in The Lord of the Rings with Frodo. He's living a normal life in Hobbiton, and then all of a sudden he comes across the ring, and then Gandalf kind of gives him the push to take it to Rivendell, which is what kicks off his adventure. And Luke Skywalker is confronted by Obi-Wan, and he's taken off into an adventure. And even in The Matrix, when Neo encounters Morpheus. So you see in a lot of these movies, there's some form of ordinary world that the protagonist starts out in, and then they get this call to adventure and this encouragement and push from an older, wiser mentor figure. And then they cross the threshold into that special world, and they meet new people, they come across conflicts, and they overcome those conflicts, and eventually the story kind of reaches it gets more tense and more tense, and eventually reaches this climax where the main character has to fight the villain or overcome some grand hardship, and something cool goes down, and eventually our protagonist might get a little scraped up here and there, a little bruised and bloodied a little bit, but ultimately defeats the challenge and comes out alive. And typically the story concludes in our protagonist returning back to that ordinary world, but just a more wiser and knowledgeable and influenced person. And the reason that story seems to resonate with human beings so much is that's kind of what we go through on a daily basis. Maybe not a daily basis, but just in our lives, we have cycles of where life might be normal and bland one moment, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something sparks a shift in our day-to-day routine, and we come across challenges and conflict, and all of a sudden, we're exposed to this whole new world we didn't know existed before, and it can be frustrating at times, but there's almost an adventure to it, and we go through troubleshooting the problems that come across and take on the challenges we come across and eventually defeat those challenges and overcome those conflicts, and we come out a better person who has learned and grown through that experience, and life kind of settles down and we return back to our ordinary world, but this time a more influenced and wiser person who has learned and grown. And obviously, like, we're not going out to fight dragons and destroy magic rings and learn magic in a wizarding world and learn how to wield a lightsaber or dodge bullets in the Matrix. But we relate to those stories because we see ourselves in a world where we're constantly moving from the status quo of a normal life and then being thrown into crazy situations that we have to overcome that challenge ourselves, and we eventually do and come out of it a grown person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
That was kind of a lot. Were you all able to follow that?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I watch a lot of TED Ed videos. I love TED
Yeah.
in general. I think I talked about that last time. But TED has this separate branch called TED Ed, and there are all these educational videos that are actually animated with a speaker, and there's actually a really good video that talks about the hero's journey. And ever since I watched that, I just immediately resonated with it a lot. And actually, I gave a presentation on it in my college communications course, so
that's cool.
it's a concept that I am very interested in, and I think it's pretty cool. Thought it'd be worth sharing. The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, as specified in his book, A Man with 1,000 Faces.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, your initial question being, are these things that don't solve problems necessary? I feel like it is. That's what I think.
Wait, say that again?
Oh, just saying, like, your initial question a while back was about, like, are these ideas in fiction which do not solve problems, are they, like, necessary?
Right.
Something like that, yeah.
And maybe they're not necessary, but I think there is a level of being able to identify ourselves in the protagonists of fictional stories that do kind of give us inspiration and drive and passion and hope to keep moving forward. What are your thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think your original question wasn't specific enough, and I think you got to talk about what it's being used for, what value, where the value is being measured, I guess. And yeah, I think fiction is great for entertainment, among other things, but I think that's something it does really well. And stuff like Hero's Journey probably makes it, even more entertaining. But then when I think you're asking, does it have value in, I don't know, technology, right? Isn't that kind of the original spin of the question?
Right.
Yeah, and that one I have a little bit harder time saying it does, but if we break it down into different, categories, yeah, I think it's good for entertainment, good for probably like spiritual growth, all those good things.
Yeah.
I just don't like reading.
And the truth comes out.
Yeah. I should have just started with that, but reading's hard.
Yeah. No,
You don't even, you ever-
it'd be interesting if one of these days we could have a guest speaker that that has more of a background in thinking from a more English perspective or liberal arts, I guess, in general type perspective. And we'll have to continue this conversation next time with a someone who's more passionate about literature and fiction than we are, and kind of see what their perspective on it all is.
let's
I think
get
that was
let's get J.R. Tolkien. What's it? Who is it?
J.R.
J.R.
Tolkien.
Yeah, Tolkien. Get her.
I mean, that'd be awesome, except for the fact that he's dead.
Oh, get his son. Just kidding. That's weird. I think you meant like someone we know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
All right. I was thinking maybe you meant some like writer. Okay. Yeah, I don't know
Hey,
too many.
I'll be right
Oh.
back, guys.
Okay. I'm at.
That would actually be pretty cool to get like an actual novelist on our podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, would they even care to take the time to speak with us? Like, even that would be impressive.
I mean, everybody's kind of sitting at home with the virus going on. What else are they gonna do?
That is true, yeah. All you need is Discord. You just gotta hop on. It's not like we actually have to go somewhere and interview someone in person. I think
Yeah.
that's the cool thing about virtual technology and being able to communicate in virtual spaces.
Oh yeah.
But I was just saying more of the like the politics side of it, of like now you have to call up the secretary and ask
Oh yeah.
them for the
Call their
schedule.
agent.
Yeah, their agent, and see if you could book time with them. And it's not you don't just grab someone's number and call them up and be like, hey, you want to do this? I don't know, maybe that's how it's done, but
Uh,
yeah.
okay. So I'm at 3% battery right now on my laptop.
That's fine.
So,
We've also been talking for an hour, so I mean I'm good with where we're at.
oh, okay. Well
Yeah.
then I'll keep it on for 3 more percents.
Logan had to take off too anyway, so I think that was a good like natural place to end too. Like I think it was kind of cool we still ended on a question then an answer, but I think in the spirit of this podcast, it's important to end on a question because we do not have the answers. I'm just a regular guy who enjoys talking about things he's passionate about.
There you go.
There's definitely a lot of things I'm not gonna have answers for, and I'm not gonna be right on a lot of things either. Like, I thought for sure 1984 came out in the 50s. I was actually thinking Fahrenheit 451. That was the book that came out in the 50s. 1984 came out in 1948. And then, like earlier, I accidentally said Joseph Campbell expands on his idea of the hero's journey in the book A Man with a Thousand Faces. The title of the book is actually The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Oh.
So, if there's people listening, that's proof right there. I'm gonna mess some things up, but it's the idea of it.
Yeah, I guess.
The idea is maintained throughout.
You're gonna need a fact checker, Adam.
I know. Well, I mean, since they're doing Discord, we have the internet at our fingertips, so
Nah, who cares?
it just takes
I
an
like
easy Google search to fact check.
Yeah, well, Yeah, you guys could tell me if I'm wrong, because I feel like I feel like an idiot when people tell me I'm wrong, obviously. But they do that so that you don't continue acting like an idiot. So it's like, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think telling someone they're wrong is a good way to have a discussion, though. That's loser think. Have I
You're
ever told
wrong.
you about the book Loser
Oh,
Think?
you did. Well, I don't know
Yeah.
though. I mean, if you let someone just run around being wrong, that's doing a disservice to them.
Good point, but like, how do you communicate with that person? Because
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
if they are wrong and that is like their mentality, then like it's not always easy to like convince them of that.
well, I guess yeah, you'd have to know that they're wrong. Let's start by prefacing that, right? You have to know they're wrong. If you tell, and you can prove that they are. Yeah, I wish you could just tell someone they're wrong. And even me, like, I think like certain people, if they were to tell me I'm wrong, it would be hard. But maybe at some point we just decided as like a society, oh yeah, let's not do that as much. So now it's kind of become normal not to call people out on it.
Right. Well,
But
I still think because it's human nature to become defensive when you tell someone they're wrong. And I mean, you're mature enough to have the mindset that if someone were to tell you you're wrong, like you're completely willing to accept that and like you're a teachable person. You're a teachable and adaptable person. And I
uh,
think that's what helps you to maintain that mentality. But a lot of people get very defensive when they're told that they're wrong, which is,
mm,
it makes sense. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just human nature. Um, but I think there's a right way to go about discussion and conversation with people that you disagree with. And a lot of that, if you read the book, Loser Think,
oh yeah,
it's expanded upon in that.
okay.
So it's a good book. Loser Think by Scott Adams.
Hey, that's like your dad, and then you.
Yeah,
Huh.
my dad's
Gave
name
away
and
our
my name.
personal information. It's all right. I have 2% battery. Should I go get my charger?
What percent?
If you're down to keep talking,
I'm down
I
to
think
keep talking.
we have some pretty good content.
Okay. All right.
Um,
All right, good. Well,
but yeah,
let's
go.
get it.
Okay, yeah, go get your charger and we'll keep talking.
Need a power inverter? No, you're fine. Yeah, what did you do today, Adam?
Woke up, read my Bible, did work. I took a nap. I went on a run. I ate Chick-fil-A for lunch and watched The Accountant.
Ah,
Yeah, and then now I'm talking to you guys. I still have to eat dinner. I went. The thing I did right before this was I went on a run and then took a shower and didn't really have time to eat. But
how long was the run?
7.1 miles.
Oh, dang, that's cool.
Yeah.
I rode today a little bit.
Can I make it?
Oh, he's gonna make it. He's gonna make it.
Hey guys.
Don't die on us.
Don't
Hey,
die,
Andy.
Andy. Don't go towards the light.
Oh my gosh.
So I take a lot of notes on my phone and just jot a lot of things down. You guys know this. You helped me transfer
Yeah,
those notes
Oh,
from
yeah.
my old phone.
but for the thousands of
um,
listeners, they don't know you.
yeah, yeah. This is for the listeners. um, But I have a note just for thoughts and ideas I had, and this one was written while I was in college, and I believe I wrote it at a time when I was very upset with an English assignment I was working on. But I think it's funny, I was able to find it, but since we were talking about English earlier, I'll talk about it. But this is what I wrote at the time. Don't judge me. But I said English, not the language, but the subject, and literature are completely pointless because they contribute nothing to society. No
Oh,
technical achievement in the history of mankind has ever been accomplished by a novelist. Writers and novelists and literature enthusiasts are a bunch of sad drama queens. That's why it's hard to think of a successful writer who never got depressed, committed suicide, or died at an early age. The only reason English and literature exists is because you can profit from it. People actually buy the crap novelists write and publish. I hate English.
Dang,
So
that's good.
I'm pretty sure I wrote that at a time when I was very upset at a current English assignment I had been working on at the time, and so I think I just decided to jot that down. Um,
Should have turned that in instead.
yeah. That would have been a great way to end that class. Like, jot that down on the final, turn it in, drop the mic, and walk out.
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Adam. That was great.
It's good. Yeah, yeah.
I knew you would like it, Andy.
Oh yeah.
Another thing I wrote, two like notes underneath that I wrote later on, is I find it amusing English class is enforced to improve my critical thinking when it's my critical thinking that makes English harder for me in the first place.
Huh.
And I think what I meant by that is I'm always thinking about other things not related to English, and it really inhibits my ability to focus when I'm writing. Especially when I'm writing essays, when I'm forced to write about something that I just do not care about at all, it is so hard for me to produce an essay out of that because my mind naturally tends to wander to thinking about other thoughts and ideas than what I'm supposed to be writing about. And I think people who are good at writing in English classes are the ones whose brains are more geared to think about more what their essay topic is. I don't know.
Huh.
I'm with you, Andy. I'm in the same boat.
Oh,
English is
okay.
just something I never got.
Yeah, for a while I was thinking, oh man, I might be, I might be kind of on the not on the wrong side, but on a side that's not such a great side to be on.
No, I think these questions and this discussion just kind of shows that every individual is built differently and our brains just perform better in certain subjects than other subjects, and we're more interested in other areas and topics and fields of study than certain other ones, and that's
Yep.
just the beauty of it all. Some people live and thrive off of fiction novels and essays, and uh, for some people that's just not their cup of tea, and it's great.
Yeah,
I
that's
like tea
true.
though.
You
I
like
guess it's
tea?
just not my cup of tea, yeah. You guys have to tell me if I complain too much. Some people tell me I complain.
Oh
Oh,
no,
okay.
bring it out.
Okay.
Like go for it.
That's fine.
Like if there's something that you feel strongly about, just say it anyway. We don't care.
All right. That's good. Good to know.
That's what uh that's what Around the Bonfire is for. Get your
Okay.
thoughts and ideas out.
Yeah.
Good to know. Logan's doing something interesting with his lighting.
I know.
I was wondering if you guys
I'm
are
over
seeing
here
it.
just
Yeah.
looking at Logan watching his screen and love cam.
Do
I
the
was playing with the IV cam, so I
okay.
have it set up right now. So, because I found this other cool app recently that allows you to completely control your phone through your computer. So I can see what's going on my phone, and like, a click is a touch basically. And so I didn't realize that you adjust the exposure and the ISO by like tapping and dragging either horizontally or vertically. So it's like, yeah, I was actually just trying to do something else on my phone, and then like I accidentally messed it up.
See. Huh.
Yeah.
Looks cool. When you get it to be like black, just pitch black behind you.
Yeah.
Looks like you're, I don't know, in like a PBS video or something.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever see like those smart glass videos? Did you have that?
Smart glass?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's
I
like your
don't know.
teacher. Okay, so your teacher could go into a room. There's like a black wall, and then in front of the black wall, it's a sheet of glass, and they could write on the wall write on the glass, so they could like write out practice problems on the glass, and it
Okay.
kind of like it's whatever that highlighter material is, where it's like luminescent under certain light.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so they do these like practice problems, and against the black background, you could like kind of read it. It's pretty cool. But it looked like
Oh.
it kind of reminded me of what you look like,
Yeah.
or like PBS. I don't know why I keep thinking PBS. I don't really know what that is.
Like a television broadcasting station, I think.
Yeah, it's a television network.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think I used to watch them when I was younger, and they would do these things against a black background. So that kind of looked like that could be
Yeah.
a completely wrong memory, but I thought PBS.
Yeah. Dang. Did either of you guys check out the Elon Musk interview on Joe Rogan?
No.
Oh, not yet.
Oh man.
Could you put the link in our text channel, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I think part of me thought it might be kind of cool for this podcast, like if we had something that we had seen or something, like if we had all seen this and we're able to discuss it, it would be kind of cool.
Ooh, let's make that our podcast for next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it might be more like homework than we want. But I mean, I think this podcast in particular would be worth watching. But
yeah, I'm down for doing a little bit of homework in preparation for our next podcast.
yeah, I don't know. What about you, Andy? Do you think
Yeah,
that
I'll
would
watch
be
it.
like you'd be down?
I mean, how
I'll watch it.
long is it? It's probably not that long, right?
2
Well, I
hours,
mean,
think.
Joe Rogan episodes are like usually 2 to 3 hours. This one is 2 hours and 8 seconds.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I could find 2 hours during this next week to talk about it. I mean, I could even probably wait just until next Tuesday and then watch it, 2 hours before we start. That way it's still fresh in my mind.
All right.
Let me put that in my calendar.
Yeah. All right. I just put it on the general text channel. He talks about like Neuralink, and it's been in my mind the whole week. I've been annoying Perrine, bringing it up. But he at one point he talks about like what Neuralink is, And have you guys heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's basically how you would interface. Well, man, I am a layman trying to explain something that like just a way to connect your brain to like a processing unit in a sense. And at one point he says you wouldn't have to talk, and then Joe just starts like laughing because it's like, and then he goes on to it. Something you said earlier, Andy, made me think of it again. But he says like, and I think the way Elon Musk talks is like the way Andy kind of thinks sometimes. But he's like, our minds think of things in a certain way, but the way that we, then it, what our mind, okay, this is what he said. I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, he used the word compress. So he said, our minds have these very complex ideas and have to compress them down into words. And then those words are spoken to other people, and then they have to be decompressed into their brain. And so much information is lost, and I think he said like the bit rate is very slow. And people could be also interpreting things in the wrong way. And with Neuralink, the way that he said you wouldn't have to talk. Like, these ideas would not have to be compressed to the extent that they are to just form words. And you could just speak to people like via these, like, I guess, your brain, the thought would be sent to like the processing, like the Neuralink, and then that would be sent to someone else's. And the complex thought could be delivered like just as is, rather than having to be compressed into words. And that thought has just been like resonating in my mind, like, wow, that's crazy. And they kind of talk about how at that point, like, language will kind of be like a sentimental thing. Like, talking to people with mouth noises will be like a sentimental thing that we do just because, we like it, or like nostalgic.
It's like old school. It's like retro.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's almost like how, like before when we were more tribal, and even tribes to this day, you would eat in order to survive out of necessity, but nowadays you kind of just eat just to enjoy it. I imagine like talking, obviously we still need to eat to survive, but there's not that level of I don't know, there's not much at stake nowadays.
Yeah, like, I mean,
eating in order to survive, and we kind of just eat to enjoy the pleasure of eating. So yeah, it's excuse me, sorry. Interesting to think about a time when the necessity to communicate verbally won't be as high stakes either, and we'll just be communicating via mouth just for pleasure.
Yeah, like they bring up like how we still enjoy like bonfires and roasting things at the bonfire, but that is one of those things, like, it is just like a sentimental or nostalgic thing that we don't need it anymore, but we still like it, and we can still do it if we want. Like, he kept mentioning that, like, you can still do these things if you want, like, and you don't have to do the Neuralink if you don't feel like it, but yeah, it's interesting.
I'll have to watch that video. Yeah, somebody.
Yeah. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody actually did tell me about that specifically, the compression, decompression.
Oh, they did?
Somebody told me just that part. So yeah, that was that. Hearing that, I actually I like the way that was put, and I thought of that before, but just he put it in some pretty good language. But it almost kind of, man, because it's been sticking with me a little bit too, and that's probably why I worded whatever I worded earlier. I think I was talking about induction, and I worded it however I said it. But
And you
yeah,
said
it's
you
kind
couldn't you couldn't say it, but just trust that you you
of
knew what you were trying to say.
yeah. So they kind of, I think like hearing that kind of corrupted me in that I've kind of given up on language, and I thought, oh man, you're right. Language is, what's the point of being good at it if it's kind of broken, inherently broken? So who cares?
Well, we don't have Neuralink yet, so
No, yeah.
you can still
I don't even think
try.
I would want, yeah, okay. I don't know if I'd be willing to accept a new technology, like something like that. I don't know enough
Yeah, it's
about.
very invasive.
Yeah. But yeah, if I stop using English, you'll know why. Stop using
Yeah.
correct English.
I mean, I'm so bad at English already, and like I think because I struggled with English in school growing up and during, you know, adolescence and those critical years when you're maturing, and just English just never stuck with me, so it's never been one of my strong suits. And so for me, that would be like a godsend to be able to convey my thoughts and communicate it, just that raw idea, to another person without struggling to put into words. I mean, that has Adam written all over it for me, because there are so many times when I'll be in the middle of a conversation and my lack of vocabulary or lack of I don't know, just the amount of words that I should know to be able to use to convey my thoughts is very, very low.
Hmm.
I'm constantly find myself getting stuck in situations where I'm asking the people I'm talking to, like, "Hey, what's the word for blah blah blah, and what's this called?" And even though I
Oh
know that
yeah.
I know it and it's in there somewhere, but it just, my brain is not geared to um send that information back and forth in my head, so it's very easy for me to lose certain words and definitions. So I'm not the best at English
That's all right.
in that regard.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what I was gonna say. Maybe that's what like books are good for, is they show you some new words, new vocabulary, among
Yeah.
other things. But that's one of the things I could think of.
So maybe we could kind of not review our previous statement. See, here's where my lack of my ability to recall words comes in. But what's the word for when you give English teacher like your essay, and then they give it back with new recommendations of what to fix? They what your essay?
Oh, I
What's
never
the
had
word?
that. But
Like not the,
fix,
huh?
fix, amend.
Close. Like not fix your essay, not review your essay, but it's like when they give suggestions and they check for punctuation and they check for grammar and
Critique?
paragraph. Huh?
Critique? Criticize,
No,
critique?
that's a good word though. Um, no, it's when you suggest like these are the changes you should make, like reform, but it's not reform. And like sometimes we would like self do this, or there would be peer review, but not review. Like peer what?
Mm. How about evaluate?
Peer evaluation? The word will come to me.
Okay.
Um, but I think we could amend what we were talking about earlier and say maybe literature and novels and writing, whether fictional or non-fictional, solves problems on a personal level or a micro level, whereas STEM fields solve problems on a much larger, wider macro level, you know? Because
Oh, I don't know about that.
we're talking about, like, does reading solve problems or does writing solve problems? And um, Andy, you were kind of talking about how reading and writing, the classic books that we tend to read in English, or at least the way that English classes are structured, like that type of reading and writing doesn't really solve problems. At least in regarding to STEM, you brought up like the medical field or even like computer science and kind of more logical thinking. Like, okay, yeah, that might be true, but I feel like STEM fields are more geared to solving problems on a much broader spectrum, on more like global scale, something much more of like a macro level. Whereas like reading those books, and maybe they didn't do it for you, but maybe for other people, um, those thoughts and ideas and those small bits and pieces of wisdom that we could gather from those books, kind of what Logan was talking about, allow you to solve problems in your own personal life. So they are still problem solvers, but on much more micro level. And maybe that's why we personally don't see value in reading and writing and just English class in general, because the way our minds work, you and me, Andy, is like we tend to think on problem solving on a macro level, whereas
Oh, I
people
get
who
it.
do like the value that English class provides think about problem solving on a more micro level in their
Uh-huh.
personal lives. So maybe that's where the truth lies, somewhere in there.
Okay. In that way, I could get behind that. Revision. Oh, is it revision?
Yeah,
Revise?
thank you.
Oh,
Revise. Peer
wow, look at
revision.
that.
What?
Told you we'd
I was
come to the
thinking of
word.
that word. And,
Dang. Okay.
No way.
Well, the only thing though about that is like it kind of goes against what Logan was saying, which actually I agree to an extent, and I'll have to explain in a second. But Logan was saying, it reaches like an audience, the whole world pretty much. That's like its potential, and usually who it does affect. So that's kind of opposite of personal. I don't know. Is that personal still? Personal, but a lot of different personnel. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Um, cause yeah, you're right. I guess in a way it sounds like it goes against what Logan was saying. But by spreading the thoughts and ideas of a single novelist or writer to a multitude of readers, the problem solving occurs within the micro level. Like, so even though the wisdom is spread on a
Oh,
macro level, the problem solving doesn't actually occur there. The problem solving occurs within the individual self.
okay, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I think your original question had a lot of things that needed to be clarified or expanded upon.
Well, I asked a very broad,
Right. Yeah.
poorly worded
Oh,
question on purpose,
okay.
um, to allow for a revision. And yeah, I didn't.
Uh,
It wasn't an actual question,
uh,
That was just something to drive discussion and see what our thoughts were.
yeah.
I think when it comes to discussion, it helps sometimes when just a random broad question is thrown in there somewhere, and then we narrow it down from there.
You're a real sneaky one, Adam.
yeah.
Okay. Well, if we have time, yeah, I think but I think there's a difference in what, like what literature intends to do in principle and then what it actually does in practice, you know. Because I think you could even answer your question under those different lenses, and I think they're different things. Like, I don't know. I always thought authors just write stuff to entertain. They're like, oh, I wonder if anyone will get a kick out of this or
Oh,
whatever. Or some of them will even like troll people and just be like, I'm just gonna make this really vague and see how people interpret it and never tell anyone what my interpretation is. But then like the real thing that happens is like people go and read it and they're like, oh, this is cool. Let me go and share it with everybody. Let's go study it. And then now they're gonna have like a whole movement, like a social movement based on it. I don't know. I don't know if those are always like the intended purpose. But yeah, when you ask like value, I think you gotta like almost think about that in a sense.
yeah, I think for writers specifically, I don't think their end goal is entertainment. And maybe some of them write with entertainment in mind, but I think a lot of writers, they're just driven by wanting to get their own thoughts and ideas onto paper, and then if they could get it published and it gets big, then good for them. But if not, I guess that's okay too. But I think inherently they're driven by the desire to just get their thoughts on a page, whether it be through nonfiction or fictional writing. Just some people have that desire, like, this is such a cool idea, it needs to be written down. And maybe you or I haven't experienced it on such a passionate level as that, but I think people who make a living off of writing, they just feel they just have passion to get their ideas put onto paper and then roll with it and see what happens and see where it goes, whether it's entertaining or not. Sometimes it is entertaining, but I don't think that's the main driving force behind
Yeah,
it.
I see.
This makes me I kind of wanted to ask this before, but I think I lost my train of thought or something. But do you guys feel like there's an equal value in each of the mediums? Like, writing is something we've had for the longest time now, to record thoughts, record ideas, and pass them forward for others, and also distribute them to others. But in the modern era, we now have that plus audio mediums, various audio mediums, plus now video as well, and a lot of different combinations of each. Do you guys feel like there is equal value to each of them?
I'm
Like maybe
thinking.
Adam.
Yeah, Adam, why don't you go first?
Adam first.
Um,
And I mean,
I
like,
think
one
so
thought is
too, because I feel like the passion behind writing in the first place stems from the human nature of enjoying storytelling. I mean, humans have had an innate quality of wanting to tell stories, whether it be around the bonfire or just at work and passing the time, or for entertainment, um, whether it be in performances and um, just kind of what the precursors to modern day theater, musical theater, or stage plays have become. But there's just this innate human quality where we just enjoy listening to stories and telling stories, and there's just something about storytelling that is so core to the human psyche. And um, I think no matter what medium is used to transfer those stories and that method of storytelling, I would say there's an equal value, whether it's a film, whether it's a stage play, whether it's a musical, or a book and writing. I think they all have value. I wouldn't say like a book has more value than a film or a film has more value than a book. I think the value is derived by the quality of the story, not the medium in which it's told.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Oh,
I would
okay.
agree with that. And I mean, a lot of things, like sometimes like writing is like the background. Like it's like, a movie was written in a script, or like a movie was based on a story or inspired by like a story which was written, and then it becomes a movie, which is like another level. And maybe that movie would end up reaching more people that didn't really feel like reading for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But then there is kind of like a difference. Like some people, I think I've heard argue, like when you're actively reading, like you're kind of investing in it more than like when you're passively watching something. You can't really passively like read. Um, but yeah, I think I agree though that the equal amount of value can be in either of them. What do you think, Andy?
Oh man, I'm overthinking right now. So
Uh,
value in the sense of personal value,
Not
or
necessarily. I guess like value to society. Like does
okay,
each form of, I don't know what we would call this, but communication or something. Does every one of these mediums that I've mentioned, like, are they just as valuable to society in like spreading ideas and stuff like that?
oh man, I could sit here and think about it all day.
Because like
Uh,
you have you in this you have mentioned that you don't really like reading, but
okay.
I know that you like watching things sometimes,
Hmm.
maybe listening to things, I don't know, but I mean, I wonder if any movie has ever inspired you in some way, like Inception or movies you've
Okay.
had that just the ideas from them like end up being in you and then like inspire you in the future.
Hmm. Let's see. Uh, I can't really think of any example of something that I live my life by
Yeah.
from that I've gotten from a movie, or I'm sure I've been influenced at some level by the stuff I watch or the games I've played. That was another one that I wanted to add to this because I think I'm probably contradicting a lot of what I say because I think games are a similar medium to writing, but that could be another discussion. But anyway,
Mm,
I
I like
I
that.
honestly like think of I really see a lot of this stuff, a lot of this media as entertainment. That's maybe one of my like foundational premises, I guess, is a lot of the stuff I look at as just mostly entertainment. So even music, I don't really go listen to music for the lyrics, and I feel like that surprises a lot of people when I tell them that. But
I'm the same exact way.
oh yeah, so and I think Logan, you've told me you're kind of the same too.
I have, yeah, I
Yeah,
am.
so because I just kind of listen for the entertainment value, or I guess artistic value. I don't know if those are the same, but I don't go there for like the inspiration or like the spiritual. Same with movies. Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of just go in to enjoy it, which maybe might be like a low level of experiencing stuff, but yeah. So to me, they all kind of have the same value. If I look at it entertainment from an entertainment like perspective, they all do kind of have the same value.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
But
video
if I were
games is
to,
an interesting one too.
mhm. Again, I don't play games for story, uh, but a lot of people do, and I guess that's something I
Yeah.
just have to agree to disagree on.
Mm.
There's this quote. Okay, I'll just say I'll say that the quote is out there, but I don't want to say it on the air. But it's John Carmack. He talks about his thoughts on story in a video game. I encourage you guys to go look it up. But
Yeah.
that's actually something that I've kind of, I won't say I live my life by, but when I develop
Wait, say
games.
the quote anyway. Say the quote anyway.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, might lose some listeners. Just kidding. It's not bad or anything. It's just kind of, I feel like some people might find it inappropriate. But let me pull it up. I want to get the exact words. I want to misquote the man.
I like John Carmack.
Oh yeah, did you see him on what's it, Joe Rogan?
That's when I first figured out like who he was.
Okay. He's one of the original developers for Doom and I think Doom 2. And now he's gone on to do a lot of virtual reality stuff.
Yeah, he's like the Oculus guy, right?
Yeah.
CEO.
I don't know his I don't know what his role is, but he's involved with that. Okay, here it is. I'll just say it because this is his words, but
story. Yeah, we do not endorse this quote. We're just quoting it.
Well, I endorse the quote. I just don't think I would have worded it this way, but here it is. Story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's not that important. Oh no, this is not complete. I just started reading a quote that's not complete. The rest of it's like it's expected to be there, but it's not that important. Just that's oh man, I botched it. But yeah. Okay, so he's just saying like, you know, I mean I don't really watch those types of movies, but I could kind of maybe guess. But yeah, it's like it's kind of there, you know, story. Everyone expects it to be there, but you shouldn't like focus all your developmental energy into it. Just because I don't think that's what games do the best. Oh yeah, and I was gonna mention that your question, Logan. I was more thinking like, I think again you could break it down to different like levels of value, but I think certain certain media does certain things better than others. And I would say video games don't do like stories as well as something like a movie. And so for me, this quote is saying, yeah, just embrace that this is not supposed to be what it isn't. It isn't what it isn't, kind of thing. But it could be really good at doing what it needs to do. And in that way, it's better, or it has more value than some other medium. But that doesn't make it a necessarily like overall better medium than the other thing. It's just better at a certain aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyways, there's a quote. I botched it, but I mean, you guys can look it up. It's I don't know. It's actually kind of hard to find because I started reading this one and it wasn't complete, but I think they were like paraphrasing him. I don't know. Go find it. I mean, you get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I think. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I do. I have always appreciated stories in games.
Oh yeah, I know.
Final Fantasy VII, for example, like that story like moved me deeper than a lot of movies I've seen. I guess I personally think that like in a game there can be like a combination of what is it? Tactile function and like story function in a game. And like if I feel like the Final Fantasy games like got it just right where like the story is amazing and then like the actual strategizing to like achieve these goals in the game, combining both of those things into one they did it very well in a way that was just like a joy from the beginning to the end.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
I noticed that. I mean, even just since a young age, Logan, um, it's cool seeing the enjoyment you derive from those long, like I don't, I don't even know how to categorize those games. Those like adventure games, I guess.
I would say
Um,
like story driven.
yeah, story-driven
Like there's
adventure games. It's been cool to see like um that game for some people games like that really do have an impact, kind of like how a movie can have an impact on someone. I think I'm much more of like a film buff. I'm really into kind of analyzing interesting films and thinking about the ideas and thoughts that are portrayed in a film past, what the average audience member will. And it's cool to see how you're able to derive that same kind of contemplation from those types of video games. And I know one of my old roommates from college, his name was Donovan. He was a very similar, or he was of a very similar mindset as you. He was really into um, story-driven adventure games, kind of like the way that you were. I feel like you guys would have a lot of good conversations about that because
mm,
he knows way more about video games than anyone else I know. He's pretty into that niche, I guess.
mm, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess in our lives like we tend to just kind of follow the things that stimulate our brain, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
Like if we're talking about video games, which is just one small part of like life, but like I like story driven ones, but there's also gameplay driven ones. And I also like that too. I appreciate gameplay driven ones, but I'm not like a huge like gamer. Like I never got into games like competitively, like games like League, and I never got
Yeah.
super competitive. I was more interested in just like achieving the goals set before me, even in just a one player setting on like Zelda games and or story based games, more like Final Fantasy. And um yeah, I don't know, because I know you guys are really into like the shooter games, and I feel like that's like the on, if it's a spectrum, then that's very much on the gameplay spectrum of like this is tactilely there's probably a better word, but this is stimulating to me in the way that I want to put my fingers in the right places at the right times, um and like get really good at that. Like it stimulates that part of your brain.
That's
And I was
such an
into it. What's that?
that's really interesting insight. I never thought about it that way before.
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean it's just like maybe that's one thing that your guys' brains like really appreciate, because I mean it's a skill, it is, and some of us are more drawn to some skills than others, and now esports is like a real thing where people are actually competing for large sums of money, like worldwide.
Yeah. You're right. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about like there's um the experience that you're drawing from the virtual world of the game, but there's also the tactile nature that goes into actual playing the game and playing it well and performing at a capability level to compete with other people. And that's cool that you're able to point that out because that gives more insight into um, just myself and how you're right in that like tactile things do kind of stimulate me more. Like when I think about sports and especially how much I love volleyball or solving Rubik's cubes or doing archery or shooting. um, rock climbing, like even that, like those are all very tactile activities, and so it would
Yeah.
make sense that when or if I do play a video game, it would be something that requires more stimulation on the tactile areas of my brain. So that's really cool insight. I learned something about myself today because of
Mhm.
that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key is everybody's stimulated by different things, so there's kind
Yeah.
of no explaining a lot differences,
Yeah.
or it's at least difficult to explain differences.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, like how would you describe, Andy, like the way that you're what types of games you're drawn to and why, or at least used to be, or maybe still?
Sure. I am like 90%, I don't know, refined on this like stance, I guess. But I think most well, okay, 90%, and then I'll just say a declared statement of truth. Never mind. Never mind. You'll get it. But I would say games are supposed to be interactive as like their main thing that they are is that they're interactive. That's like the most essential thing to a game. And as
Okay.
soon as you get away from that, for example, like telling a story and you're just sitting in a cutscene for 5 minutes, well, you're not interacting. You're just like sitting around doing nothing. But on the other end of that, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pick on story games, but that's like something that really gets on my pet peeves is when you just sit in a cutscene for like a really long time. And story
Yeah.
games seem to do that a lot. But on the other end, I'm thinking about Doom, right? Gotta think about Doom, 1993. That game, if you play it right, uh, the whole like the way I describe it is like the whole time you're just like constantly thinking about what you have to do to survive. So like, you know, yeah, I don't know. You got all these enemies coming after you. What gun do I have to use? What movements am I gonna have to input to like, stay out of the way of fire and whatnot? It's a very
Mm.
engaging experience if you play it right. And I always have to say that because I think there is a wrong way to play Doom. This is a very
Mm.
dear game to me, Doom, but yeah, there's a wrong way to play it, and I think it's missing the essence
you,
if you don't play it a certain way.
you
But
know when your profile pic is a Doom character on
oh
Destiny, it's
yeah.
a very, very dear game to you.
Yeah, so that's a very special place in my heart. But yeah, to
Mhm.
me, I guess maybe not interactivity, and that's why I said I'm only 90% there, refinement on that. But I think maybe engagement is a better way to think about it. If you're like fully engaged, then that's makes a good game, in my opinion. And I think Doom is a really good example of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess
I
I
don't
would
know.
just argue that like the story games can be as engaging, but it's just a different kind of engagement, I think.
Oh,
It's
that's true.
like
Yeah.
you're engaged. I mean, I'm engaged when I'm watching a movie that's really compelling to me. And so like a story
Oh,
game,
okay.
I'll be like just as engaged in that. But I
Well,
guess
then
it's like you're
let's figure out what kind of engagement. Hmm.
yeah, it's like you're taking turn like if I'm thinking of like Final Fantasy, for example, like it's
Oh,
like you're
okay.
taking turns between engagement in like the story and engagement in like what are you
The
doing to
gameplay, yeah.
yeah, in the actual gameplay. It's like a balance of both of them.
Is this like
And
when you're in a battle?
like if you're in a battle, that's more like you're just engaged in the actual gameplay.
Uh-huh.
But then like once you succeed the battle and then the game progresses and it goes to a cutscene or something, like that's more like a movie, and that's like I'm more engaged. I don't
Ah,
know, in the story.
yeah.
I'm not. I don't even have to play at that point, but I care about the story like I would in a movie. And I'm actually totally happy just like taking turns between the two. Like I don't
Oh, okay.
like I remember what's funny is like my partner or my girlfriend, I'm just gonna like leave her name out because of the millions of people listening
Oh
to
man, you already said
this.
her name.
Yeah, my girlfriend, we were playing the new Final Fantasy VII together, and I think she's the opposite of you because she's really interested in the story, and she says every time that a fight happens, it's like a commercial break for her. It's like a
Nice.
break in the story, and it becomes really boring because she's like, obviously you're going to win every time, or you're like, but for the game to progress, like you have to win. So I understand
Yeah.
that that's like the outcome. So like I don't get why we keep doing this over and over. And me personally, it's like I appreciate both of them, and I am also down for like gameplay driven games. But I guess yeah, I appreciate both types of engagement, both in the gameplay and like the story.
I see.
Where are we going, Adam?
I need to go get food.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like your kitchen, but oh, I get
I
it.
had to drop something off in my room. Oh, I'm gonna go dark in a second. This is like Paranormal Activity. Look, I'm
Oh
green.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Craig's light. Craig's green light.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that is Craig's green light.
Craig.
Well, if you see a ghost in the background in my
Oh
camera,
no.
be sure to let me know.
Okay. I can't watch. I'm afraid
Alright,
of some stuff.
here we go.
There it is.
Is Craig
Well,
a bear?
oh, I thought he was a squirrel.
Yeah, I
Squirrel.
couldn't figure out what he was either. I thought he was a dog. We all have like different opinions about Craig is.
Some pink face. Oh, no, he's not even pink. It's a brown face.
Yeah.
What's it called? Androgynous. It's like
Oh yeah.
androgynous. Well, that's gender. I don't know. It's a robot, guys. It's not a bear. Not a fish. But yeah.
Yeah,
That
whatever the animal version of androgynous is, it's that.
well, there's one thing I just have to accept is that people do like story in games. I mean, you look at I guess BioShock, people go to those games for like stories. Half-Life, I guess. Call of Duty, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think people go to story, but they're like these stories that you can name and everybody knows them for the story. Sorry, these games you could name, everybody knows them for their story. So I think you kind of just have to, and that's what like John Carmack was saying is like you got to give them what they want. That's what people want. But I think there's a way to like give them what they want and also kind of just emphasize other aspects. So that's more of my kind of games. I'll just say that.
And maybe it's just important to like, stick to your lane, as they say. Like maybe your lane is the gameplay, and like if you don't care about the story, like yeah, like just stick to the gameplay part. I feel like you already have done some really cool things in your development, and
Oh,
so
I see.
like maybe the story aspects of games are like a waste of your brain cycles.
Yeah, okay. I could see that. I just feel bad because I don't know. One side of me, I'll say the side of me that's experiencing how I feel, I guess emotion, says the just focus on the game, the interactivity part of a game. But then the
Yeah.
other side of me is thinking like, why does it matter that a game is a game? Who says, who says like games can't be engaging the same way movies are or the way books are? So that's kind of something
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
struggling with accepting. I would say with movies and books, I have that too. Is like, oh no, movies versus games. Yeah, okay. I guess that's a big one. Is like, why can't why can't you make a game that's like 90% movie or like watching a story and then 10% game? I guess if you release that, people are gonna be like, oh, this is a boring game, but it's kind of an interactive movie, like slightly interactive movie. So
Well, wasn't there an attempt to make a slightly interactive movie with
Bandersnatch?
Bandersnatch? Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but Bandersnatch is like the spin-off of what's the main series called?
Mirror or something. Broken
Black
Mirror.
Mirror
Black Mirror.
or Dark Mirror? Black Mirror, yeah.
Yeah, Black Mirror.
Okay. Yeah, so that I guess that's an example of a 90% whatever percent movie game.
Yeah.
I'm
I
thinking
didn't
more
think
like
there's even that much interactivity. It might just be closer to like 2% interactivity.
yeah. Yeah, so like that I guess that proves that it's possible. And I think what helps is the format that you deliver it. I'm thinking like if you were to put that game on PlayStation and charge them like $60, everyone would hate it. But it's the same thing as if you put it on Netflix. I guess the price would be different, but Netflix isn't free either.
That's true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel bad. Is like I want to stay in my lane, but what if there's like a better way to think about it?
Yeah. I mean, in one sense, I feel like it is good to try to create more of the things that like you are inspired by, or like the kind of things you are really inspired to create. Maybe those are the things that you have the best like contributions for. Whereas if you try to create things that you're just really not inspired by or interested in, then like yeah, it's not worth your
Okay.
time.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm
Well,
just thinking about you as like a video game developer.
okay.
I don't know.
I guess in a way, yeah, not worth your time typically sounds kind of harsh, but I think that's true. Just because you can't, I don't think there's enough time to embrace everything. So you kind of almost just
Exactly.
have to focus on some things more than others.
Like if you're not super inspired to be like a basketball player, like maybe it's not really worth your time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's arguable, but
That's not being closed-minded, right? Because you just realize you can't. You got to prioritize.
I think I don't think it's like closed-minded. Um I think it is kind of important because like we're right here, we're all early and mid 20 people. So yeah, we don't have all the wisdom, but like I think you don't want to like waste your life on something that you're not compelled by, you're like bored by, you know. I think you enjoy your life more when you are following your passions and your interests. Because I notice definitely like when I am interested in something, then time goes by much faster. And when I'm not, then I'm like counting the time and like feeling like it's being wasted or, you know. So like I think it is kind of important for us all to kind of identify those things and move forward with that knowledge, with that mindfulness.
Okay. What? All right. I'll add to that. But I just worry that if I do that, and I think I've done this in the past, but I kind of fall into this pattern of getting really good at something and then neglecting a lot of other stuff.
Mm.
And I don't mean that with just like games. I'm saying with like more than that. But that's always kind of scary about choosing something that you're passionate about. And it's tempting. And there are a lot of things that you could say to justify it, which I agree with. Like I like what you said about, we're kind of young and let's not waste this time. But it is, I don't know, I'm always worrying, like, should I really be doing this? Am I being
Mm,
too, I think that's the thing is like, am I being too close-minded by just committing to one thing?
yeah, well, the reason I said we're young is like we don't have the wisdom yet to really know like if it was worth it or if it wasn't. Some of these things.
Hmm.
That's why I said that. Like
Okay.
if we were in our 50s, we might be able to say like, yeah, man, I wasted so much time with this in my early years when I wish I just spent my time with, this other thing.
That's a really good point.
Oh, wait, can you
Yeah.
say that again?
I'm just saying like the reason I said why I qualified it by saying the obvious statement of like we're young
Uh-huh.
is that like we do not yet possess the wisdom to know what was worth it and what wasn't. I mean, we're starting to kind of, but like, if we were in our like 50s or 60s and we were reflecting on our lives right now, we might be able to say with more confidence what things were worth our time and what things were not.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm really saying.
I see. So it's like, given that we don't necessarily know the best path or the best decisions, let's just default to doing something that we know
Right.
makes us happy. Okay. I
Because
see.
there's not enough time has gone by to be able to look back and reflect on our actions to see whether they hold any value to our lives or not.
Hmm.
And the only like way to get there is just time. Like only time will tell. Oh, time.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could be satisfied with that way of thinking. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time trying to thinking. I don't know if I've done it, but thinking about like how I can improve or ways of like fitting in, I guess, with society. Because I consider it an investment. It's like there's certain things I bet you could learn about, uh, I don't know, learning how to fit in, and that could potentially like lead to a better social life in the future. But I think going down that path would also distract me from what I'm passionate about now. So I was unsure of like which of the two might have been a more optimal way of living.
Yeah. That's like cool that you bring that up and you're interested in that. I feel like we could do like a whole podcast episode on kind of the kinks and quirks we've picked up about human behavior and just like discussing the importance of human social interaction. And because I know the three of us each have differing levels of like how we like to interact with people or groups of people or
Mm,
individuals. And yeah, I feel like the three of us have some pretty interesting insight into what we've learned about social behavior. And I feel um like we might have insight on that because for people who that just comes to naturally, or that it's been coming to them naturally for a long time, might have a harder time analyzing social human behavior because it's just their second language.
mm,
um Whereas people who aren't as social naturally, but want to be and try to be and strive to be that, um, have insight because they're the ones who have to teach themselves how to how to do that.
mm.
how to infiltrate social circles.
Yeah.
It's one way of saying that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'd be down to discuss that on a episode.
But yeah, Andy, like,
Huh.
are there things that you in particular have felt that you've wasted your time on? Like, or is the idea of like fitting in, was that like your example? Or is there like more, like other like specific skills? Like, I wonder if you feel that way about music or
Oh, I
anything
see.
else.
Oh, I think what you're saying is if I were to, I guess in my case, if I were to continue, let's say like playing saxophone as much as I did in like high school, you're saying like that kind of thing? Not so much skills,
Um,
but oh, yeah.
well, I guess I'm going back to when you said like what things are a waste of time, or like what you started by saying like, is it closed-minded to want to just stick to like the things that you're interested in?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get specific, but I was thinking about game development and how
Yeah.
I seem to always be on Unity on my computer, working on something in Unity. And
Yeah.
that's good. I feel like I'm making a lot of progress and,
Mhm.
building up this great skill of game development. But that's also time that I'm not spending out, socializing, learning how to socialize, just learning all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's always at the back of my mind is should I really be doing this? I mean, what's it gonna be? What's this gonna what's this gonna be worth in the end?
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought.
Hmm. I guess I feel like I'm falling behind in some of the trends. I don't even want to
Yeah.
say trends. Well, I'll say trends too, but more so just how to behave, how to socialize, um, just in general in society. But
Yeah.
I think that depends on where you live. And again, I go back to like what we were talking about earlier about Elon Musk's thing. But I mean, like if you even go extreme, you just say everyone decides to not use English anymore. We're going to communicate, I don't know, with emojis or something. Well, everything you've learned about communication with English, it doesn't matter anymore. That's dependent on English or language at least. So that's kind of how I
Yeah.
see it. It's like, what if this changes? It's probably not going to, but that could change. And I guess as a less extreme example is if you move to another country where they might speak a different language or the culture's much different, then some of the stuff you've learned, some of the like things you've learned about socializing might be drastically different. So in that way, it could be not an optimal use of time. Whereas like Unity, it's kind of that's pretty culture agnostic. I don't think Unity's going to change if you go to another country. So that's kind of what I meant.
I mean, do you really feel like you're lacking with like socializing or?
Yeah, I think so. You guys have been pretty good about, I guess. Well, I guess I think you guys are different, and maybe you understand me differently than other people. But yeah, it's something I personally feel like I could improve on, or I'll say at least I struggle with. But I could get into that another time.
Hmm.
But to
Yeah,
answer your question, yes, I
I
do.
see. That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like I see myself in a similar way. I don't necessarily feel like the strongest at socializing for
It's
whatever
hard.
reason.
Well, I don't know if it's hard, but I'll say it isn't easy.
I mean, it's definitely a skill, but I also think there's a level that we tend to be harder on ourselves than other people do. And once, I think it helps like understanding that we're more critical about ourselves than we are to other people. And then so then that makes you think, well, that means everyone else who's socializing or that I'm socializing with, they're more critical about themselves and they're not really thinking about me. And so you carry a lot more to the table than you guys probably give yourself credit for.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that comes to my mind is like, I wonder how much Andy and I might be overthinking it. Like, thinking about
Mm.
that we lack in this skill, but we don't actually. And the actual thing is like simpler than we think. Like, I think I've encountered that a few times where like,
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think
yeah,
I
like,
Well, how do you guys measure something like that?
that's the hard thing is yeah, like how do you what is what is see that here I go again forgetting
Oh
a very
no.
useful word for the situation and it's not coming to me. How do you measure competency in social behavior and human interaction, you know? Like if creating a class about learning social skills became part of academic core curriculum in schools and education, like how do you grade someone on social skills? Interesting that social skills are something that we like pick up subconsciously, um, and like we know when someone has it or not, but being able to explain it or put weight to it or something more quantitative, that's like we wouldn't even the human brain wouldn't even know where to start.
mm,
Fair
yeah.
point.
It's like you know it when you see it type thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That'd be interesting to look up if there's a way to measure competency.
Yeah. And I know there's like just like how there's IQ, your intelligence quotient, there is EQ, which is your emotional quotient, which does play part of a role in at least how you socialize with others, but it is nowhere near the defining factor in your ability to socialize in any
Mm.
way whatsoever. So it's interesting how that works. Social interaction is a very interesting concept to me.
Yeah, it's very complex for sure. I mean, I guess it on the surface level it could be really simple, but then if you really think of it at the deepest level, it's like these two brains, which are just a combination of a lot of neural connections, are speaking to each other. There's so much going on like the fundamental level for that to even be possible, and it's in that sense it
Maybe
is
that's
like
why
very complex.
maybe that's why that stereotype or stigma of like the so-called nerds um being unable to socialize or just being more antisocial comes from is because the way the brains work for people who are considered nerds are just tend to be more analytical and would be what other people would say, excuse me, overthinking things. Whereas
Mm.
um, someone who doesn't think at the same level or capacity of a nerd they just go into conversation and they don't think about, oh, it's like two brains sending signals and interpreting input and output of interactions. Like that's not what people who don't think like a nerd, that's not what happens inside their brain. And so maybe that's why nerds seemingly have a hard time being social when they're just thinking about it at a way higher capacity than people who seem to be better at socializing aren't thinking like.
I see.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's funny, and I really want to get my friend Lawrence in here because he and I have had very long conversations about this, and he as well has like this analytical brain that just like overthinks things, and it's interesting to pick that brain sometimes. But yeah, I
Yeah,
gotta
let's
get
get
that
him
guy
as a
in here.
guest. Guest
Yeah, if
speaker.
you guys are down, I really want to get him. I think he'd have a lot to add.
Okay.
Would you
What?
be able to get him not next Tuesday, but 2 Tuesdays from now?
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be a fun
I
conversation.
actually just had him make a Discord, so
Ah.
Perfect. Step 1 is complete.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think this would be cool.
okay.
Actually, just a minute. I actually have to be right back again. I gotta use the restroom.
Alright. I like the way you put it, Adam. You're kind of saying you can compare people to, or you're like comparing social competency relative to everyone else. I guess you could say the average. In a way,
Right.
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
At least, yeah. And that's why I think I'm struggling, is like I don't consider myself close to the average. And that average
And
changes.
kind of like what I was saying, though, I think the reason for that is because you're such a high level thinker. So this is what I'm kind of postulating right now is people
Okay.
who tend to be good at socializing know how to not overthink things. Because I've
Yeah.
noticed that in social gatherings and social settings, things become awkward, the way that we use the word awkward nowadays, in a social setting when people overthink things. And you'll hear that like in relationship advice or just like friend group advice in general, you say, oh, like, I don't know, that's just so weird and I don't want things to be awkward. And then the friend always says, like, well, just don't overthink it and don't make it awkward and it won't be awkward. Like, it won't be awkward if you don't overthink it. And so there seems to be this, we tend to subconsciously tie awkwardness with overthinking things. And I think people who think at a higher level that, what pop culture society would deem as nerds, people who kind of think more than the average person, in a social situation that doesn't require high level thinking is going to be seen as overthinking. And then that's when the awkwardness comes in, or at least stems from.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of times at work, I'll want to say exactly the like technical. I don't even know if it's like technical, but I could think of like a lot of times where I'll choose specifically like really dumb sounding words just so that people either feel like more comfortable around me or just don't think I'm a total weirdo. But it's in my language now. It's like I have to kind of modify some of the things I say. The way I
Isn't that
think.
weird?
Yeah.
Like using heightened vocabulary can make you sound pretentious.
Yeah.
I've noticed that as well. There have been times
yeah.
where I'm like, I want to use this cool sentence because it'll sound really cool, but I'll sound like probably a jerk. to this
yeah.
person who doesn't know me that well.
Yeah, so that's like one of the little tricks I guess I've picked up is you can kind of do these little things.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm noticing there's kind of a connection between like balance and being the most average you can be, and in correlation to like, you know, what you might call like success in a social situation or social setting or social interaction. And
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of studies out there and statistics that say like, you know, people have these ideas that we tend to worship like the extreme versions of people, like the biggest or um, the cutest or the smartest or the prettiest, you know, the most good looking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when in reality, studies show that the most successful people tend to be just the most average people, the most
Oh.
average looking, the most average taste, the most average behavior, and um, like pop culture tends to worship the extreme cases of like the best looking, best behaving people, and but it seems like fate rewards those who kind of find the middle ground. You know, it's an interesting correlation that those who are able to operate in the middle ground and maintain some sense of balance, for whatever reason, tend to come out more successful, which is very interesting to me.
Huh.
Kind of plays
Average Joe.
into a lot of like Taoist and Buddhist thinking of just the idea of balance in life, and yeah, I thought that those statistics revealed very interesting things about human nature, in
Huh.
my opinion.
I could see that being a true thing. And that's kind of what I meant with fitting in. Well, I kind of meant that, and then hearing you say that, now I know that is what I meant. But fitting
Yeah.
in, meaning you got to find that average Joe-ness, whatever that looks like, and you got to like drive to look like that.
Yeah, like how average could you get? And it's interesting because we even live in a society that says like there's no such thing as normal, be yourself, be unique, like find joy in the uniqueness of your personality.
Really?
But regardless of, well, yeah, you know, there's just that kind of trend in our
I don't.
society. Like,
I don't watch news anymore. I don't
I
watch
mean,
society.
News,
the
society news. I don't know about that news.
society news. We should create a whole separate like broadcast and call it the society news, and we just talk
Society
about weird
news.
things going on in our culture at the time.
Oh yeah.
No, but you know, there's
Oh, is
just
that like the
things
butterfly
that,
or sorry, snowflake, whatever mentality?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Like
right.
everyone's different, and you gotta celebrate your uniqueness and celebrate those differences. There's just this overarching theme in our culture nowadays of like try to be as unique as you possibly can, when in reality, statistics show us that uh, humans tend to reward, or society tends to reward those who are the most average. And so it's kind of funny thinking that way. Like, I don't want to be the best I could be. I want to be the most average I can be. But
You know,
that's who society tends to reward the most is
Apparently,
average people.
it's
average
interesting you
Joe.
mentioned that, and it makes me think of a conversation I've recently had with my girlfriend who is from like Hong Kong, and she has told me that it's definitely like a very American thing for everybody to want to be very individualistic, because she says where she comes from it is more about being like average and like fitting in. Like people
Oh,
don't really want to stick out. Like her whole upbringing was more like that. Like it's not really, you don't really want to stick out, and like it was just kind of interesting. Like people want to like tend to be like in agreement on like political stuff and all this. Like people just want to blend in, and yeah, so that's kind of like a testament to how they might be different and how in ways they might be more successful than us, or maybe not, but it's kind of interesting to monitor that.
Yeah. You think she'd want to be on a podcast?
I feel like she would probably not, but
Oh, yeah.
I would love to have her on. I feel like she would have a lot to add, but she would be, before getting on, she would just be like, I don't want to hear my voice, or
Oh, yeah.
I
I
wouldn't
don't want to hear my
have
voice,
anything to
so.
add. Yeah, like she would feel like what she has to add is not worthwhile, but I think it would
Keep
be.
encouraging her then. If it's like, if that's what's keeping her from doing it, just
Yeah.
keep being encouraging. And cause I would love to have Perrine with us. That'd be so cool. I had a lot
You
of
mean,
fun talking to her the last time I was over at your place, Logan, and I think she does. Tell her that I said I do think she does have a lot to add.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be kind of an interesting thing to ask her more about, just the cultural differences. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where her insight would be, is yeah, cultural differences. We could learn a lot
I've
from her experiences.
I have definitely like really loved our conversations about those things, and like ways that she will point out to me how like she and I would differ, and it's like, wow, yeah, I am that way probably because I was raised here, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because now that I think about it, Sophia and I talk a lot about that also. Shout out to my girlfriend as well. But I've noticed a lot in our conversations, um, Sophia will tend to bring up like her culture, like, oh, like these are how things are done in my culture, like this is how I was raised, and that's one of my favorite parts about our relationship, is learning more and more about how different our cultures were. And I mean, obviously for me, I'm stemming from two completely different cultures, being half white and half Filipino, um, and then she's ethnically Mexican, and so that brings a lot to the table as well. So it's fun, kind of just learning about, yeah, how we've been brought up different ways, and just the different cultural, um, I guess, aspects, um, of our upbringing kind of play a part in our relationship with each other. So I do agree with you, Logan. Those are fun discussions to have.
Yeah.
well, that's cool. I think, yeah, everybody should experience other cultures at some point in their life.
Oh man, you have no idea how much truth you just spoke right there, Andy.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
I think every American teenager needs to travel
uh,
to a different country. Like, I think there needs to be a program. Maybe I should just be the one who starts it. There needs to be a program that brings kids on field trips to different countries. And I know that would like the parents and the educators and teachers that would have to be involved in such an endeavor like that, like, um I don't know, I could just imagine the amount of pushback I would get from even
yeah.
trying to push for that idea. But there needs to be a way to, I feel like just every citizen in America needs to experience what it's like to travel to a different country and experience another culture, because having that more like global and world mindset versus just the world that you grew up in, it really expands your mind. And
Bet. You know,
yeah.
like the astronaut effect? I don't know if it's called the astronaut effect, but is that close enough to whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Logan,
Well,
you like nodded your head.
explain it.
No.
I don't know if it's called astronaut effect, but it's something like apparently all astronauts experience when they go up and they look at Earth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It is called something different. It's not called
Oh,
astronaut effect, but yeah, that is. I do know what you're talking about.
yeah. I feel like there could be like a similar thing at play when you go to another country.
Exactly. No,
Experience.
you're exactly right. That's a great way to say that.
Mhm.
Good analogy.
Thanks, Adam.
I
But
like
yeah,
that.
I don't know. I'd really like to travel, and if you guys want to come, because I think the only thing that's stopping me is I don't like the idea of going somewhere by myself, which maybe might be like a California way of thinking. But
Mm.
for some reason, yeah, I don't like feel like traveling anywhere by myself. But I know that's something that I feel like would be really important for me. So if you guys want to come to travel with me, that'd be cool.
Dude, that would be amazing, honestly.
Well,
I actually have been starting a savings account just for travel. Honestly,
Right.
inspired by Perrine, because that's like a huge priority in her life is traveling like once a year at least, usually more than that.
Oh yeah.
She gets on a plane, goes somewhere. She's like, man, she's been to South Africa. Well, she's been to a lot of places, but she's like, man, I want to go to South Africa again. And I want you to come with me. And man, it would be awesome if we all did something like that.
All right, let's keep it on the docket.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Andy, you know me. I keep wanting to go, talking about wanting to go to the South with
All
you.
right, let's do it. Hey,
Yeah.
why don't you stop saying that and actually do it?
Because I need to finish City Year first.
You could skip that. I think we gotta
Uh,
wait for this virus to go away first.
yeah, that's actually the first priority is we gotta wait for the virus to end and the quarantine to lift.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was thinking about doing this today. I never got a chance to, but I was gonna look at where the cheapest real estate was. And I know this, or what state, sorry, let me be more specific. I was gonna research what state had the cheapest real estate on average, and I wanted to travel to that place, and or at least one of the cheapest. And so I know a lot of the states that have that are in the South,
Nice.
which is one reason I think going to the South would be a good idea. Um, and I, like I said earlier, I know I bring it up to you all the time, Andy, but I'm like, honestly, I'm like super down to displace there for a little while, live somewhere super, super cheap, and then just save up a whole bunch of money and then move back to California.
Yeah, I'm 100% down for that.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of that would give us an advantage for sure, and I think there'd be a lot of benefit in um, yeah, moving somewhere super cheap. Like we would be ahead of other Californians, so to speak,
I
by
like it. Yeah.
moving somewhere super cheap first, racking up a whole bunch of money, and then moving back to California rather than the whole time paying rent in California.
Yeah, I think that's
Mm.
I guess we should have if we're staying in California, there should be like a pretty good reason for it. And I don't
Right.
have too much of that. Well, I guess I could think about it more, but really the only reason I'm still here is because this is where I grew up.
Right.
And that's a cool reason to have, but I don't mind saving a little bit of money going to the South.
Yeah, because I keep not that I keep forgetting it, but I haven't thought about it. But you didn't really travel that far away for school. Like San Diego is right in our backyard.
Mhm.
So you're still like a native San Diego person,
Yeah, yeah. San Diegan.
San Diegan. So
Uh,
yeah, I'm down to change that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, rent is ridiculous, and I'm still paying rent in quarantine. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do.
Dude, same. I tried getting out of my lease, and I talked to someone on the phone yesterday,
Hmm.
and they were saying, yeah, like under no circumstances will we allow a break of lease. You're financially
Oh,
liable until September. And I'm like, ah, you're freaking kidding me. That's such a waste of money.
yeah.
That's
Oh man.
$1,500 just down the trash right there.
A month?
Wow.
No, total. Net.
Oh,
It's
oh,
like 500 a month.
oh, okay. That's still, I
So
mean,
June, July, August, and then part of September. So it's probably like $1,600.
you buy
Oh
a lot of toilet paper with $500.
yeah.
I just picked something. I don't know.
I know,
Buy a lot of
Alex.
something. Oh,
Alex.
okay. Well, that's too bad. But that's California for you. Well, at least like, Southern California, maybe
Yeah.
Northern
One
Cal.
thing and I'm just theorizing here, I could be totally wrong, but this might be true. One thing I've kind of noticed is people who live in and grow up in California tend to be less mobile than people who live in and grow up in other states. So, for example, when I did a friendsgiving this past Thanksgiving 2019 in Utah with my friend Rachel and all her friends from Montreat, which was the college she went to in North Carolina. And here, we're all her friends. I'm meeting people that like lived in Vermont, went to school in North Carolina, who are now living in Oregon. People who grew up in North Carolina then moved to like Georgia or Alabama, then back to North Carolina, then to Colorado, and um, one of her friends who is now a married couple, they're currently living in Colorado, and their other friend moved to Utah. Um, and then there was someone else who was like from Vermont. Um, I couldn't remember I couldn't track all the states. But my point is like everyone there except for me and Rachel like have lived in all these different states and were more mobile. But like me and Rachel, the two California people, like we tend to just stick with California. So I
Hmm.
think that's interesting. This that's like such a different mindset than what Californians or at least native Californians are used to. I don't know.
I think it. I'm always imagining it like, oh, let's just stay in California because it's so nice here, or at least the weather's pretty nice,
Yeah.
so they just stay there.
People like that Mediterranean climate.
Yeah. I didn't know that you were interested in traveling, Andy. I thought you used to not be as interested, right?
Well, I think it's yeah, that is true. Yeah, but I think it's not for the reasons that most people travel. Maybe I don't know. I actually don't know why most people travel, but
Uh,
I am thinking of potentially like uh finding a better, or I don't know how to word it. Looking at other places to live, because maybe California is not the best place for me, in particular. So that's part
mm,
of why I want to travel.
Yeah, I
yeah.
know for me, I want to experience the South purely because I know that's where I would experience the most culture shock. And that's what I
Oh,
want. I think that'd be a really cool experience. It might not be fun right away, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn and grow through that experience.
mm.
Mm,
So, yeah. How about you, Logan? What's your like opinion on traveling?
mm. I guess I'm interested in it. I do want to see like what other places have to offer and see sites that I'm not used to and see how cultures are different. But then there's this other part of me that if I think about not just traveling for visiting, but traveling to move, then like there is a part of my brain that thinks like, wouldn't life just be the same, but somewhere else? Like I'm doing the same things in another location. So that does exist in my brain. Maybe it's just because I haven't traveled enough yet to know better. But yeah, like in one sense, if it comes to like the idea of moving, then I think of like how things have already kind of like been built here, and like why would I want to like abandon that and just start new, like when I don't have to? But the idea of like traveling for like visiting or like staying somewhere else for like a while, that's interesting to me. But
How
yeah.
long is a while for you?
I mean, if it was possible, it would be really cool for like a month or two even to like go to a different place.
You're kind of doing that. Okay, I don't know if I should. Well, you're gonna do that coming up soon, right?
Yeah. I
Sort
mean,
of.
staying in Arizona with my uncle. But I guess I meant more like it's kind of more of like a dream of like in my life to go to like another country for maybe a couple months or something. I don't know if that would be possible, but it with like if I could somehow work remotely, then such a thing would be really cool. But yeah, I guess I like the idea of like a home base where like a lot of my friends live around here and a lot of connections I have are here. And it's nice to like be able to see people still. And like I guess another concern is as a musician, I mean, I'm not that far along, but I have made a good plenty of connections here where I can, have like annual like gigs with like several different people and like they all add up and people can vouch for me and there's a lot of good like opportunities. There might be better ones elsewhere too, but leaving that behind seems like, dang, I just built that up and now I'm gonna start fresh. So, but yeah, those are just a couple of my thoughts.
That could be intimidating though, starting fresh. I don't even know if that how difficult that could be. Because I've been
Yeah.
here 20 whatever years, so.
I mean, it depends on kind of where you are in life, I think. If you have nothing to lose, then I mean, starting up anywhere isn't that hard or risky. And but if you're married and you have kids and your family is well established and your routines are built up and you're responsible for your family, yeah, it would be a nightmare trying to move and start fresh. But yeah, people do it. I mean, it's always possible. It depends on the amount of work you're willing to put in to make it happen.
Yeah.
Cool to try it, like a trial run. Oh, it's called dry run.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things where I say, oh, that'd be cool if you could just dry run it. I think they got it. If they're gonna start with something, start with parenting or marriage as something that you're able to dry run, and not like age. So you can have like 20 years of marriage just to make sure it works, and then at the end you just go back and you get those 20 years back.
Wow.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. All right, nobody take that idea. It's mine.
You got to
All right,
patent it.
Andy.
Yeah. When they invent the time machine, that's what I'm gonna sell it, like resell it for.
Repurpose it.
Repurpose, yeah. Yeah. It would be cool to dry run living in another place, and I guess that's what travel, like short-term travel is.
Yeah.
But it's hard because then they're like, oh, you only get, you know, 8 hours of leave a month or however many. I guess some places are more lenient, but I was actually gonna take like 2 weeks off of work just because I was kind of getting a little tired of work. But then I was like, maybe I'll use this for something better rather than using it on a whim.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, Adam, I was thinking about you, and because you were talking about going on a road trip, so I saved my hours for you, Adam.
Oh, wow, thank you, Annie. That means so much to me.
I don't even have that many, so it's not much, but it'll get me a couple weeks.
Dang, couple weeks? I only have I was only allowed 12 days off of work this entire year, and I only used 4, so I technically have 8 days left. The thing is, you're not allowed to use days consecutively.
What?
Um, but uh, maybe I should just take a 5-day weekend. Or what? A 5-day weekend? A 3. Whoa, let's not get too ahead
You
of
can't.
myself.
Oh, you could do a 5-day.
5-day weekend? No,
Yeah.
remember you're not allowed to take consecutive days off.
Oh, across weekends?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say
Yeah.
do Friday. Well, you have to find a holiday.
Maybe I
You do
could do that.
Friday, and you do Tuesday of the next week.
Ah, Memorial Day is coming up too, so I could
Yeah.
do that. But I was thinking a lot about what you said um a couple of days ago, Andy, about even though we're doing virtual work, keep in mind that we could still take days off. And I completely forgot that I had twice as many days off that I've already taken off, and I'm like, you know what? Andy is right. I should use that and take a day off.
Yeah. Do a Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he that was not legal. He played hooky. I'm
Oh, you're
saying
right. Yeah.
I'm legally allowed to take a day off, and I get 8 of those left. And so what I'm thinking, I only have 5 more weeks of school left, and I have 8 days. I might as well just take every Friday off from now on, and have a 3-day weekend every single weekend.
Oh, yeah. I was like mapping it all out to do something like that too. You should do it, Adam.
Yeah, and even if I have a 3-day weekend every weekend until we're done, I will still have days left over at the end. So,
Yeah, and it resets if you continue with your company.
right.
Okay, so yeah, what do you got to lose?
Exactly. Thanks, thanks for reminding me, Andy.
No, no problem.
Well, guys, I think I'm done. I think I'm gonna sign off here.